Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to our Unit 2. I hope you guys have enjoyed the information Unit 1 and, the information from Day 1 and Day 2. I know there's a lot of information. Highly encourage you to go back in, take a look at the videos from Lesson 1 and Lesson 2. They do kind of build on each other. And also we've got a big test coming up in just a few days. So I want to make sure that you're going back in and reviewing that. Let's get right to the information. Okay. Over the last couple of days, we've talked about the musical alphabet being A to G. And when we're looking at the note names here, if you've done the assignments inside of musictheory.net, you've known that the lines are E, G, B, D, and F as they go up. One way to remember that is every good boy does fine. And then the spaces, the space between the lines F, A, C, and E. So the lines, every good boy does fine, spaces, that washes his face. That might be a little mnemonic device that'll help you as far as remembering the note names as you're going. Music notation, we also talked about this. When you're looking just at the piano keyboard, find the patterns of 3 and 2 and note that those patterns will repeat all the way across. There's 88 keys on the piano. That includes the black notes and the white notes, and they're always going to be in that same pattern of 3 black notes followed by 2 black notes. If you will look at the 2 black notes and go just to the note just below that, that's always going to be a C. Notice that pattern repeats. C, D, E, F, G, A, starts over, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, repeats the whole way through. And the 2 notes, one note right below the 2 will always be a C. And then if you raise a note up a half step with a sharp, that is C sharp. And if you lower that note a half step from D down to the nearest black note, that's a flat. And when we have a C sharp and a D flat, they're the same sounding pitch. Those are called enharmonics. So again, if we're looking to take the 2 notes and go one right below it, C, going up C sharp, and going from the D down, D flat. C sharp and D flat sound the same to our ears, but have a different note name, and that's going to be dealing with the key signature, some music theory stuff that I don't expect you to know, but I do expect you to know the term enharmonic. What that means is the note sounds the same, just has a different name. A flat sign in front of the note lowers it a half step, looks like a B, and a sharp sign in front of a note raises it a half step. It kind of looks like a hashtag. In fact, in some of my other classes, I've actually heard someone say like a hashtag C, and that's not it. It's a C sharp. So it looks like a number sign right before a note. Means you're going to take that note up a half step. The flat right before a note would mean you're going to take that note down a half step. So what does this really mean? Treble clef. Every good boy does fine. Same information that we were talking about a few minutes ago. And then the spaces, they are F-A-C-E. When I'm talking about the spaces, I think it's really important for you to realize we're talking about the space between. Notice that whole note, that big circle, takes up the whole space. Any note that fills in that space would be considered an F or an A or a C or E. Basically, you're just reading a graph. One of the things that there's a lot of study that's been done talking about people who study music actually perform better on tests, and it's got a lot to do with the fact that you're interpreting a very different, you're interpreting a completely different visual language and processing that and trying to get that information back out. But let's talk specifically now about the bass clef. Notice here in the treble clef, you've got that G sign. We talked about that being called the G clef. Kind of looks like the letter G. And you got the bass clef. It kind of looks like a fancy cursive F. And I have a harder time seeing that one than I do the G. When you get to the bass clef, notice just beside the bass clef is these 2 little dots. I don't know if you can see that on the screen or not. 2 little dots right there. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can see it. In front or just behind the bass clef symbol could be these 2 little dots. And those 2 little dots, notice there's a line between the two dots. That line is the F. If you ever get confused That's one way that you can kind of always go back in and double check. If you do the one on the treble clef, notice that the circle right here, always good when we're doing that. The circle, the line that goes in between that circle is going to be a G. That's one way that you can always remember. A G clef is for the treble, F clef is for F clef is for the bass. And the note names for the bass clef would be the lines G, B, D, F, A, and the spaces A, C, E, G. One of the things good boys do find always, and the spaces would be all cows eat grass. You might want to come back to this particular graphic later and restudy it. Again, there's some really, really good lessons in musictheory.net that you've been doing in some of your assignments. So go back and take a look at those lessons. Use this graph. When you put those two things together, they're actually called the grand staff. We've got the bass clef and the treble clef together, and that's how we get all 88 keys on the piano, going from the bass, the left hand, the low notes, rolling all the way up to the high notes. And you put those two things together, you end up with what they call the grand staff. And those, when you take the notes on the grand staff and you start to create some scales, and scales are kind of like words. So we've done the alphabet. You start putting the alphabet together and you end up putting words, and those words are what we use to actually communicate. Let's watch, again, I'm the coolest teacher ever because I'm going to let you watch a little bit of Bugs Bunny here this morning as we get started.
I never could get that last note anywho. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And so you can see when you're talking the scale, our ears naturally and instinctively know what those scales are supposed to sound like. If I were to play a scale for you and then play a wrong note, you would know immediately that it was off key. If I were to go. Something about it, even though you don't know what I'm doing wrong, if something's just not right about that, it's because our ears have naturally learned to hear what is in tune and what is out of tune. Sometimes we say off key. When we refer to that term off key, it's because it's not diatonic. That's a word that you need to know. Diatonic often involving only notes of the prevailing key. So if I'm going to play something that is, I'm going to play something that is only in key. So those are notes that are in the D, and you don't need to know that specifically, but if I'm going to play in the key of D, those would be only the notes from the D scale, so those are diatonic notes. Chromatic is using notes that do not belong in the key. We're going to watch another video here to let you hear exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about diatonic and chromaticism.
Grammarly can help you write quickly and confidently, so you never have to slow down at work. Stay on top of emails, documents.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Poco Piano. My name is Makiko Hirata. We've been talking about scales and different functions that each member of the scale has within the scale, and building chords, building harmonies with the members of the scale. When you use only the members of the scale, this music is called diatonic. Diatonic music is only using the members of the scale. When you use notes that are outside of the scale, this is called chromaticism. The word chromatic, the stem of the word chroma, comes from a Greek word meaning the intensity or the shade of the color. By adding chromatic notes, you're adding colors to a diatonic melody or harmony and things like this. And I can show you an example. A Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, played in C major, which is all white keys, should only have white keys if it were to be diatonic. By adding the black keys, which are not the members of the scale, I can add colors.
So, I always forget to turn the microphone back on. And so what you got is when you're only talking about notes that are diatonic, they're notes from the key signature. That's a term that you're going to need to know. Key signature is a combination of sharps or flats to indicate a key. If we were to go over to our piano, and you have to pardon me, I'm blown. I'm really very large and blown in on this picture, so it's not a really great picture, but I think I can show you. Exactly what I'm talking about here. And so, just like she said, using just the white keys, that's the notes that would be diatonic. If I'm using the notes up, would be the key using chromaticism. If I were to shift that into a different key, like say maybe D major, where we were talking about before, every time we come up to an F sharp, C, D, E, F, F sharp, it would be in the key of D, D, E, F sharp. That's a lot of notation to have to write. So sometimes a composer will only write we'll write things in with the key signature, and what this is telling us, if you look at the graphic again, and I know this is a lot of information, particularly for folks who don't have any real traditional background in music notation, not something you're going to be tested on, but I think it's important for you to understand it. If you look at that graphic that's on your screen right now, that's in the key of E. That's in the key of A. In order for us to play in the key of A, we would have to have an F sharp and a C sharp and a G sharp. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a pattern for us. Key of A. So every time we come across a F sharp, a C sharp, or a G, we're always going to play those sharp. So notice that the hashtags on the screen are over top of the note F, C, and G. And what that is indicating is every time we come across an F, a C, or a G in our music, you would actually play those as F sharps, C sharp, and G sharp. Again, not something you're going to be tested on, but I think it's important for you to understand that. Again, there's some really great lessons in musictheory.net, so please go back in and check those out. And what those key signatures do is they give us a tonal center. Helps us find where our home base is. Going back to our guitar, we know when we're playing the key of D, we hear that as home. And so that pattern, that the key signature, gives us a pattern of whole steps and half steps. Whole step meaning white note to white note, half steps meaning white note to black note or black note to white note, roughly speaking, of course. That pattern is a whole note, half step. Again, nothing you need to know about. If you're a musician or maybe have a band background or a vocal background and you want to know how those scales are created, that's how it comes about. A chromatic example, and I know this is very complicated to look at, but when you're looking at the score, you can see all those, the flats and the sharp signs. You can see that would be very, very difficult to read. Chromaticism is much more difficult to read than diatonic notes. And so, I just kind of wanted you to see what that looked like. Nothing that you're going to be tested on, but know that chromatic is using notes that are not in the key. Diatonic is using notes just in the key. A couple of final thoughts for today. You've got a note flight assignment. Again, you can find all these inside of Canvas. Note flight assignment number 2. I think on Friday you did number 1 where you just wrote the melody in. Today you're adding accompaniment, or the left-handed part for Mary Had a Little Lamb. You're going to do some note names in musictheory.net, specifically on the bass clef. Remember, good boys do fine always, and all cows eat grass. It's the names of the lines and the spaces. By now you should have got your interview questions at least approved and sent out to your interviewee, and they should have sent the questions back to you. They all knew that they had to be back in by Tuesday morning. So you should be able to take their answers and start writing your articles. And then you've got a quiz number 3 on the information that we covered in the presentation. Remote learning day on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we're going to do a test on unit number 2 so that we can start unit number 3 next week. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I think on Thursday, we'll do a full review of the unit. And I'll probably do a pre-recorded version of that, and then I'll make myself available for a Google Meet on Thursdays so we can do a one-to-one thing right before that test. Again, if you have any questions, email me, cwhitehurst@camden.k12.nc.us, and I'll make sure I try to get back with you as soon as possible to answer any of your questions. Hope you guys have a great day. Have a good time with your musician interviews. I think that's a fun assignment. You should be getting some really good feedback. I'll see you guys tomorrow, or tomorrow's a remote day. I'll see you on Thursday. Have a good day.